and welcome to this month's episode of Move the Needle. I am one of your hosts, Lee Grigsby, here with my co host, none other than the superstar, J.R. Ford.
What's going on, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to be here.
Good. Awesome, man. Well, for our listeners who are hearing the audio, we are also now doing video podcasts. So you can check us out on YouTube. I will put the link in the show notes so that you can actually see what we look like while we're doing the episode.
What? What?
I know there's this invention of video. You know what I mean? So
Whoa, mind blown.
I know. Pump the brakes. We're stepping up into technology now. Awesome, man. Well, let's jump into it, man,
Yeah,
because last month it was a national holiday, right?
yeah.
For the second year it was celebrated as a federal holiday. We're talking about Juneteenth. All right. Now, what I'll share with you and share with the listeners and viewers, back in 2021, when this happened, and there was I'm guessing there was a mixed bag of reactions around the country, right? I, for one, had a mixed reaction. No, that's incorrect. I did not have a mixed reaction. I had a reaction of, "Mm, I'm not necessarily thrilled about that."
hmm
And I want to be clear that the reason I was not thrilled about it was for two things. Well, I guess the reasons. So it's two things. One, it felt like at that time they were aiming for the government, that is, aiming for low hanging fruit and trying to pacify marginalized people, black people in particular,
Right,
about a lot of things that they were going for, like a lot of equitable things that we've been fighting for.
right.
So it felt like low hanging fruit. Number two was my fear of what I'm going to address today, which was the commercialization
hmm
of this holiday. Because unfortunately, we live in a country where, you know, trying to make money and capitalize on something is the thing.
Right.
So, those are my thoughts. Do you have any thoughts that you like to share on Juneteenth before we jump into some of the articles that are supporting this conversation?
Yeah, I think I've had kind of some similar thoughts about how just the designation of this holiday kind of signifies, you know, a momentous occasion, but also with
Hmm.
typical federal holidays, there's always the opportunist part of this nation, of this great nation,
Hmm.
that wants to capitalize on that holiday. There's always some marketing or some gimmick that we typically find around these federal holidays, and so the
Hmm.
commercialization of the holiday has certainly already started to creep up, and I think we'll probably address that in the further discussion. So
Absolutely.
I got a few things to say about it.
Well, you are not wrong, sir.
Yeah,
That crept in the very first year.
yeah,
There were such things. So this is an article from what is this? NBC News. Okay,
hmm
and the commercialization of uh, Juneteenth.
right,
Um, there were companies that I take a deep breath because it shows a lack of understanding. Okay, but there were companies who are having picnics with fried chicken and watermelon salad.
uh,
I'm gonna let that drop and sink in for a minute. Like,
this was
yes,
this was
this.
on the TV, like on like YouTube or social
Well,
media.
I don't know if it was shown, but I mean,
Yeah,
like, legitimately,
someone
companies,
greenlit this.
yes, were celebrating Juneteenth with a picnic of with things at the picnic such as watermelon salad and fried chicken.
Oh, oh,
Now,
all right.
now there's nothing. I don't want to say that I hate those foods. Okay,
Right.
but that can be looked at as culturally insensitive, especially for the holiday that you are celebrating.
Right.
Okay. That's one of those things that you probably need to read the room first
And
before.
hopefully the room is represented appropriately before anything else. Like, and they should
Mhm,
have that goes to, I think, one of the the cruxes of representation
mhm,
is, if you're represented in that conversation, in that room, at that table, do you have the power to say the things that you should say?
mhm,
And as people of color, and
mhm.
probably, I think you can probably relate to this too, is being in a conversation or meeting and being one of the few, you know,
Or the
you know,
only,
or the only,
or the only. Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
a lot of pressure just
Mhm,
focused on you,
mhm.
and
And
I
that
think
you're
it's
speaking for a whole people. You're speaking
right.
for a whole
Well, yeah,
group.
and
That too. Yeah.
there's some intrinsic value that you have coming into the meeting
Mm,
that it's kind of you place upon yourself, because it's not that people are portraying you overtly like this. This
sure,
is,
sure.
as a as an as having life experience and going through certain
Mhm,
situations, you come to understand the dynamics of
mhm,
how there are either intrinsic bias, and prejudice that
mhm.
are already assumed in these conversations. So, it's just like, me being in the conversation, like, yeah, I'm here, but I'm here for a reason, and not just to,
I'm not
you
just
know,
a pretty face
just to attend the meeting. Yeah, if I'm here, and that's what I kind of learned.
or just a
Yeah,
quota filler.
that's what I've learned over the course of my career, is that, I am placed in this meeting, and for a reason,
Mhm,
for a purpose, and
mhm.
that is to contribute. And I think that's, kind of going down the rabbit hole a little bit, but to bring us back up, it's something that,
Well, don't go down the rabbit hole just yet.
okay, all right, yeah,
Because you bring up a great point that we'll get to.
yeah,
Okay, but yes, the representation, that's clear. All
yeah,
right.
yep,
So I want to share this. Um, One of the people interviewed for this article
hmm,
is I'm going to make sure, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but
yeah,
Amara Enya. She is the policy and research coordinator at Movement for Black Lives. Okay.
okay, yep,
So, as you can see there on the screen, and I will read it for our listeners there, I will also post the article in the show notes.
yeah,
But it's a testament to this country and the way that the systems are set up to where it's an automatic knee jerk default response for profit making or profit seeking. That's what happens, right? When we,
hmm,
there's some new thing, how can we make money off of it? How can we?
yeah,
So, I mean, I know there was Walmart, I think, had
yeah,
Juneteenth ice cream.
right, yeah.
They were
Just, was it
branding
recently? Was
Juneteenth.
it just this year? It was,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it
And
was. Yes, it was.
they were already carrying, a vendor, or a ice cream vendor who was black owned and was already making
Hmm.
Juneteenth ice cream, right?
So that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's this inability to actually accept, or no, not accept, um, but it's this inability to understand
Hmm.
what the holiday might actually mean. And I'm sure Juneteenth is not the only holiday. Obviously, it's not the only one that's commercialized.
Right. Yeah. No.
But
Yeah.
let's be real, right? Like Juneteenth celebrates the end of slavery,
Hmm.
but the deeper point is it goes back to how Black people were treated in this country.
Right. Right. This
Okay.
gross, inhumane, sustained mistreatment,
Profit seeking,
generational.
profit making.
Yeah. It was a main economic driver. You get free labor for
Hmm.
generations, and
Hmm.
you just generate profit.
So
So
yeah.
anyway,
So yes, the
anyway.
commercialization of it. Anyhow,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's just move forward a bit. But so like this is also the reason to touch on your point of
Hmm.
representation. I think we'll get there. I want to share another graphic here.
Yeah.
And this is what happens, right? With holidays, as we mentioned, what Juneteenth really is, you know, a lot of holidays want to focus on the happy parts, the celebration, bright sides, if you will. Um, that helps lead to the commercialization of it, right?
Hmm.
Ooh, I'm going to sell. What's the first thing? And this is probably stereotypical. What's the first thing people think of? And Black folks, you see them on the side of every event. I'm gonna make a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So that's also part of this society. That's woven into the fabric. It's an event.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make T-shirts of it.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's a part of
you know,
someone's grind.
yeah, that
Yeah.
adds to it.
Yeah.
So but the thing it does, what it really does is here, right? These are all different quotes
Hmm.
taken from this article, right? But it
Right.
changes the fact of not just the emancipation, but of slavery itself.
Right.
How
Yeah.
is how is having a picnic, and
Hmm.
I keep using the word picnic on purpose, okay?
Yeah.
But how is having fried chicken and watermelon truly celebrating the holiday?
Right.
How is rebranding ice cream, Juneteenth ice cream? I don't even know what the packaging was, right?
Yeah.
But how is
Yeah.
that truly celebrating or acknowledging the holiday, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
I mean, whew. So there was some other things in here that
Hmm.
I want to call her Doctor Enya, but maybe she's just a coordinator. Um,
Okay.
so I don't want to misquote who she is or what she
Hmm.
does.
Yeah.
But I do have some other things here. This is again the holiday is for exactly this, right? Not
Yeah.
just the emancipation, but it's a reminder, like the ugly part of it. And
Right.
so if you try to package it and commercialize it, we
Hmm.
lose this fact right here.
Right. It gets diluted. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's the whole thing. Is if you think about these other federal holidays that focus on some monumental thing, or cause.
Hmm.
Think about Memorial Day. It's it's to celebrate the sacrifice that military veterans have made and
Yes.
throughout the history of
Hmm.
this country.
Hmm.
We'll get, it it doesn't talk
Very similar.
about, yeah, it doesn't talk about how many people. I mean, we're talking about, the World War II memorial and
Sure.
other
Sure.
memorials, but there were hundreds of thousands of people,
Hmm.
that sacrificed their lives, that, were lost in the sustainment or creation of this country in some form
And
or fashion.
and yet the only thing that a lot of people know about Memorial Day is, oh, I get Monday
Memorial Day
off
sale.
and,
Yeah.
and
Memorial
Memorial
Day
Day
sale.
sale.
Yeah.
I get
We're
a
gonna have
discount.
we're gonna have a picnic. We're gonna have a cookout. Yeah.
Hmm.
It completely divorces the majority of us from what the actual commemoration of this celebration, of this holiday was. And that
Exactly.
and we're all conditioned to that. I mean, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm guilty of it too. I just see it as another day because it's a day off because um it's there.
Oh,
You
I
know.
get it. Well, and having
Yeah.
been in the TV world for so long,
Mm-hmm.
um, I completely um it was ingrained in me not to even think about holidays, right? Because
Yeah.
most of the time I worked on holidays.
Right.
So
Right.
it was either a day I work or a day I don't. Not,
Right.
oh, what is this holiday about? Right.
Right. Yeah.
So I
Yep.
mean, this is really what we're talking about here, because like I'm thank you for bringing up that point. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not just about Juneteenth. That's just the holiday that just passed, you know.
Right. Right.
But this is the point. Like companies, they have, if you're going to really celebrate it, right? If you're going to acknowledge it, if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
um, really be part of the conversation that moves the needle forward,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to understand what it's about, right?
Right.
So I want to share these because this is what your point was about inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It should be asking these type of questions,
Right.
right? This is a great
Yeah.
question. Like whatever you're doing, what you're celebrating, what you've thought about, does is it influencing, is it given decision making power or funds that are distributed? Like how are you actually making an impact for
Mm-hmm.
those who have been marginalized? And we're talking Juneteenth here with this graphic,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you know, what
Yeah.
are you doing? What are you doing as a company, right?
Yeah. And
Or
I think probably the companies that have the resources and
mhm,
have the wherewithal, where they've hired diversity, equity, and inclusion
mhm,
staff.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
probably much more on the radar than maybe some of the smaller companies, but some of those smaller companies might also have the agility to pivot, such as my wife's company was able to
mhm,
pivot really quickly and say, hey, we are getting, we are establishing, our own, DE and I, coordinator, and we're recognizing
mhm.
this holiday because it is important. And so there is some agility I think at different levels, but
I think
also
it's
I
easier
think to
for the
your point.
smaller companies to pivot to
Yeah,
that level,
yeah.
you know?
And I think to your point about the commercialization of it,
Mhm,
there's certainly, it's a US tradition, you know. That's the whole thing.
yeah,
We can't get away from it, but I think there's a deeper meaning
mhm,
to this holiday. There's a
absolutely.
much deeper meaning, and I think that gives us the opportunity to embrace it,
Mhm,
empower ourselves. Um, we will continue to see, the commercialization of it, but we will also say this is ours. This is our holiday.
mhm, mhm.
This is a holiday for us, by us, and ain't nobody else supposed to be here, at the picnic.
Right, right. Well,
you
and
know?
here's the thing too, right? Now that it's a federal and there's like
hmm
I've been part of celebrations, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
well, because I grew up in Oberlin, Ohio, and
hmm
so that was not something foreign to me. I was
Yeah.
used to a Juneteenth celebration and
hmm
understanding the history of it, you know?
Yep.
Not everybody is. So because it's a federal holiday, right?
hmm
If you've chosen to go that route, use it as a stepping stone. Again, right? We can't automatically just get away from the commercialization.
Right.
That's the
It's going
thing,
to be there.
right?
Yeah.
But we can educate, right? We can educate the public about these things. Here's
Right.
one last thing that I want to share from this article. This was one of the most important things, right? It's
hmm
not just about the freeing of the slaves. It's not just
hmm
about celebrating for Galveston, Texas. It's not just about black people, right? It really is freedom and, dare I say, humanity.
Yeah.
That's what this encompasses, you know?
Yeah.
So it was even worse, man. What made me think about this topic,
Mm-hmm.
and before I even talked to you,
Yeah.
pre-show, right? I was scrolling through randomly on Twitter, and now Twitter, is doing the same thing that social media does, and it throws
Yeah.
things in your way.
Yeah.
There was a Juneteenth sale. I was like,
What was it on? What was it on?
I don't even
On some
Wa-
mittens?
watermelon and fried chicken. No, I'm kidding.
Oh
I'm
my god.
kidding. I'm kidding. I I don't even know what it was
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
because I looked at it and I was like, you know what? Got to address that. Like
Yeah.
it is okay to no, wrong word. Like I don't want to say it's okay to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess everybody should feel free to acknowledge and celebrate certain holidays the way they see fit.
Mm-hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, I understand
Yeah.
taking advantage of and leveraging certain times
Right.
to further your business.
Right. Yeah.
I understand that.
Yep. On its
But there's
face. Yeah. Yeah.
right. Below the
Yeah.
surface, there are deeper things that
You're right.
some things, even Christmas, right,
Yeah.
has been commercialized to the point that it's more about Santa Claus than about the birth of Jesus Christ. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. This is not
Yeah.
this podcast or this
Right.
episode, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that too.
Yeah.
We'll just add
Yep.
that to the list of topics that we want to address.
Yep. Conflation of Jesus and the the Saint Nicholas. Yeah.
Oh boy. Absolutely.
Anyway, that's another podcast. That's another episode.
So there's also like this ties into the deeper issue.
Mhm.
As we've talked about many times, and I'm kind of teasing it because we're going to take a break here. But the whole commercialization and of Juneteenth itself, as we've shared, ties into a deeper issue about the establishment, right? Or by establishment, I mean the system. And by the system, I mean the system that was designed to keep white male landowners in control. I just want to be clear about that. Now, yes, that has evolved over the years. There, people are going to be saying, "Lee, we're so tired of hearing about that. That's in the past." Okay, it has evolved into marginalizing many more people. Okay, not just black people, but people of color. It marginalizes women. It marginalizes the LGBTQ plus community. It marginalizes
The disabled community.
I was going there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to know who else it actually marginalizes that people don't think about? And you brought up Memorial Day as one of the holidays that gets commercialized.
Yeah.
Veterans, and people are like, Lee, you're crazy. There are homeless. Why should a veteran ever be homeless?
Yeah.
I pose that question. Why?
Yeah.
So there are so many marginalized groups, right? So we're going to take a break, but I'm going to leave a cliffhanger here because there's an author who had made a comment about it's hard for white men to get a job in this, field. And that speaks volumes to who's marginalized and who's not. Okay?
Right.
All right. So everybody hang tight. Stay tuned. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back from the break. This is this month's Move the Needle episode with yours truly, Lee Grigsby, and co-host J.R. Ford. So in that first segment, we were diving into Juneteenth and the commercialization of it, and really how companies, we understand that we can't get away from commercialization, but really understanding um, how to acknowledge those things, how to really be involved, and maybe that, that might be a time for companies to actually reimagine or reassess their mission statement, right? As opposed to, slapping something together and say, hey, here you go, right?
Right.
But as I teased in the break, or going to the break, there is something deeper at work here, right? There are many more. This is the system here that we live in, and yes, it's been designed a certain way, and yes, we're working on many different facets, even here at Move the Needle. That's why we like to bring these difficult conversations to you. So there's an author. I guess, can I say he's a famous author? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I would say so, but
Yeah.
James Patterson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was on social media and made a quote about it's difficult for white men, older white men, to get a job in the field. Okay, as a writer. And I actually, what's funny is that I had read that quote and I was like, wow, I want to read more. Now, I think he had posted this
Yeah.
on Twitter, maybe. And
Yeah.
so it didn't go much deeper than that, but there were people
Right.
reacted, whatever.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I am willing to dive into these things to see, okay, there might be some truth now
Mm-hmm.
that the needle, the pendulum has been on one side for so long, and we are such a reactionary society that we swing it all the way to the other side. So maybe James Patterson had a
Yeah.
point, right? I'm willing to dig a little
Yeah.
bit deeper,
There's some
and
truth in. Yeah. There's some truth in there. Just gotta.
or there could be.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
could be.
It's coming
Okay.
from somewhere. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So maybe it was just coming from the way he was feeling. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. That quote was in USA Today. I think they were interviewing him. That's what it was.
Okay.
It was not on
Yep.
Twitter. All right.
Yep.
Well, there is another article from Gina Denny. Um, and she titled this article, Diversity in Publishing Isn't Hurting Privileged Writers. Okay.
Yep.
So it's brilliant piece, by the way. And so I got to read this first part. She says,
Yeah.
"This piece has been sitting in my drafts for a while as I try to get my thoughts perfectly clear."
Mm. I know that
I
feeling. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's sitting there.
Yeah.
You revise and you do this and do that, right?
Yep. Yep. Keep going. Yeah.
So literally, she was addressing James Patterson and his feelings and what he said, that it's difficult for a 52-year-old white man to get, a job.
Right.
A job as an author, okay, not just
Yeah.
in general, which I can
Yep.
imagine there might be some of that in general, older workers. I
Yeah.
believe he had called it racism in this interview.
Okay.
So she addressed that part as well with
Yeah.
spelling out what racism is.
Yeah.
I did not make that as a quote because I'm pretty sure we all understand what racism is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think
I
we
hope. I
understand that.
hope so. Yeah.
Well, I think we understand that James Patterson is not being marginalized by the systems in place because of the color of his skin.
Right.
Okay. I hope he
That is
understands that.
not. Yeah. That is
That's
not the case. Yeah.
no,
That doesn't
it's not.
exist.
No.
That's not how racism works. At
So
all.
so that, I mean, she in this article, and I will post it in the show notes as
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
laid it out, made it clear. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
go ahead, Gina. I can get that,
Yeah. Oh, man.
So actually, so here's his quote. I should have put it down, but I don't. So James Patterson had said,
Mhm.
"Can I get a job? Yes. Is it harder? Yes. Is it harder for older writers? Not many. You don't meet many 52-year-old white males. It's just another form of racism." That's what his quote was during his interview. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you used the wrong word for it. We got what you were saying, but you used the wrong word, dude. Come on,
Right. Right.
come on.
So getting closer to debunking, right? His feelings of I'm not even going to use the word racism, but debunking his feelings of the difficulty
He
in
felt othered. He felt marginalized.
there you
Yeah,
go. I like it. He felt marginalized,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now let's be clear. I am saying he felt marginalized
Right, right.
because what I'm going to share with you,
Mm-hmm.
he was not marginalized
Right.
at all. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Gina, let me get her name right again.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Gina Denny. Okay.
Yeah.
She did so on the day that this article was published. His interview was June 13th of
Yeah.
2022 this year.
Yep.
She then went to USA Today's best sellers list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there were roughly 150 authors on this list. Okay.
Right.
Won't go through all the names, but just understand that James Patterson was included in this list.
Yeah.
James Patterson was included in this list twice.
What?
He was in this bestsellers list twice. Okay.
Wait. How?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Wait. What?
So as you see the
Yeah.
graphic there,
Yeah.
this was literally their bestsellers list on the same day
Mm-hmm.
that he's quoted as
Yeah.
with what he said.
So
Mm-hmm.
49 of the 150
Mm-hmm.
were white men. 45 of
Correct.
those were over 40
Mm-hmm.
years old, and 40 of them were over the age of 50.
Mm-hmm.
So approximately one third
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
the list, was made up of white men.
And so now I have to read some of the names because this is
Yeah.
just brilliant when she goes through the list, right?
Yep.
Um, you got guys like John Grisham was at the top of the
Yep.
list.
Yep.
Okay, he's
Mm-hmm.
67. All right.
Yep.
Um, also on the list in no particular order,
Yeah.
but guess who made the list?
Who?
Dr. Seuss,
What?
who's not alive,
Right.
but yet a white man. Okay.
Still making that money.
Yeah. Right. So as we go down the list, oh, James Patterson.
Yeah. What
He's
number
like
was
in
he?
this is no particular order.
Oh,
She
okay.
was
Got
just
it. Yeah.
going through
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
marking. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well, he's 75. Okay. Stephen King was on the
Yeah.
list. He's 74. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Bill O'Reilly,
Yeah.
73. So I just
Yeah.
rattled off,
Yeah. Pretty.
white male authors who are older than 52.
And I think who we know is pretty common household names.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So again, and then she goes on to say, "Oh, James Patterson made the list again."
How did that happen?
There's quite a few who made the list more than once, and he just happened to be one of them. So I'm not
All right.
sure if he was in his feelings, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So now, out of those 150 spots,
Yeah.
9 of them, 9 were by non-white male authors or non-white authors. Sorry,
Non-white authors. Okay.
9 out of 150. I see you doing the math right now. Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute. Does that mean? So how many people were
How many?
reported twice? Do you remember?
Maybe 4. Maybe 4 of them were recorded.
Okay. So
Recorded twice.
not a large number.
No.
Okay.
Not a large number. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we will get to.
How do we get
graph.
down to the 9? Yeah.
Well,
That's
we get
crazy.
to on the out of the 150, 9
Yeah.
of them were non-white authors.
Non-white. Yeah.
One of them was Viola Davis.
Wow.
Okay. One of them was Viola Davis. So, this, and I know people say statistics you can use them any way you want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think this one really hits home here.
Yeah.
So while white men make up 31% of the population, they made up 33% of that bestseller list on that day.
Yeah. So it's
The
right.
day that, yeah, and
Yeah.
the day that he was complaining that,
Yeah.
I can't
It's
catch a
right
break.
in line. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
right in line with
Hmm.
statistically where you sit,
Yeah.
you know?
And he was on there twice.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the top 150 of bestsellers twice.
Twice.
Not sure. So,
Yeah.
like I bring this up because I want people to really understand it's when the establishment gets challenged, right? When the system starts to feel threatened and
Mm-hmm.
lose power,
Yeah. Yeah.
you get statements like this from James Patterson, where he feels it's racism
Yeah.
that a guy who's on the bestseller list twice, he's feeling some kind of way. He's feeling
Yeah.
marginalized. Okay.
Yeah.
Another way to say this, and I'm going to use for those of you who understand what's going on with golf right now, the professional world of golf.
Mm-hmm.
It is a full on display. Before I talk about that, I want to make sure that people understand now. You see, when the system gets challenged, it's not just about keeping the marginalized people down. Typically, it is because we're trying to get equal footing. We are trying to
Right.
be get equity to equity
Yeah.
access
Yeah.
to the opportunities, right? So typically, it is about that. But right now, the world of golf is an exact microcosm of what happens when the establishment gets challenged and pushed.
Right.
So you have the PGA Tour that's been for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about tradition. And it's all about
Yeah.
okay, the white male ruling the green earth. Sorry, I'm just just spitballing here, but
Yeah.
that's but golf is a pretty good representation of what
Yeah.
has been thought of as an elitist
Yeah.
sport,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yes, there have been changes, and yes, they have done things to reach out to marginalized communities. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to. I'm not PGA bashing here, okay?
Right.
But just recently, there is another tour
Mm-hmm.
that has challenged the uh, the
The
stability,
established.
the
Yeah.
establishment of the PGA. You
Yeah.
know, now it's called the Live Tour, LIV. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's what's funny, and I mean ironic, not hilarious.
Yeah.
This Live tournament has recruited some of the top golfers on the PGA Tour. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and they are getting paid extremely large sums of money. This Live Tour is backed by uh, Saudi, wealthy Saudi business people.
Yeah.
So, do you realize? And now I get to bring it like all back home.
Mm-hmm.
Bring this point back here. There have been complaints and challenges about. Now, I am not taking sides, but the Saudi government has been highly accused of its human practices, right? Or
Right.
inhumane practices.
Yeah.
So, can you imagine that the PGA is, and a lot of reporters are really talking to these players about this,
Yeah.
which is ironic because do you realize what this country, how it was founded?
Yeah.
With inhumane practices?
And still has mistreatment of a
Oh,
large portion of society. You know,
you,
like we probably people probably shouldn't be talking. You know,
you
people
see
from the
what I'm
U.S.
saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's I want people to really, really get this point. it's not just when the marginalized people, fight back against the system. When the system is challenged by its own, these golfers, all the top golfers are white men,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they've all gone over, and the PGA has suspended them. They
They've
keep
sanctioned them and
all this stuff
fined them. Yeah.
taken away. Well, if you go to that tour, you can't. You will never play on the tour again. All this, right?
Yeah.
So it's so ironic, but I want to drive that point home.
Yeah.
When the system gets challenged, even by its own, that's what pushback looks like. That's
Yeah.
what, oh my gosh, we're losing control. Instead of, I think this is amazing for the world of golf. Why don't we figure out a way to coexist?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk about your established governments because I know what mine have been like.
Yeah. Yeah. And the PGA sanctioning and fining players for making a choice.
Mm-hmm.
The PGA is not a political or socio-political organization. I know that. So I say that in jest because I know, like, for example, the NBA is not a political organization. However, they do take stances on political issues.
Sure.
So that's fine. That is
Sure.
fine on its face.
Mm-hmm.
However, given the historical context in which the PGA has operated,
Mm-hmm.
that is the deciding factor in this conversation, where there has been historical mistreatment, marginalization of both probably people of color, both staff members and golfers, for a continuous, consistent amount of time that either has not been addressed or has been swept under the rug, or
we can include women in that too.
And women, yeah.
Because
so there's this, there's this
the
whole
tournament for the Masters. Let's let this sit in for a minute. The one of their majors, the Masters, in Augusta, Georgia. Just hear that name, the Masters. Didn't let women play in the club. I'm not sure if they still do or not.
Yeah.
For a while, black people weren't allowed to be on those grounds. Fine, it's a private club.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, though.
Right.
This was the crown jewel of the PGA
white privilege, white male privilege. Like, this was the culmination of of professional golf.
Exactly. So bringing this all back to, I know we started with talking about authors, right? In James Patterson. So this is what it is. This is what I'm talking about. This talks about, this was the article where Gina Denny was talking about James Patterson, but this applies to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's a class thing, right? Because let's be real, to be an author, you have to have space to write. You have to
gotta have resources. Like, come on, bro.
It's hard to have a regular job and be an author, let alone on the top 150 bestsellers list twice.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe your wife is working and supporting you, or partner.
There's a certain level of privilege that comes with being an author, a professional author,
or a professional golfer.
Yeah.
and people will say, fine, a professional athlete. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
But you don't get to cry, I can't find a job. It's difficult to find a job when you're not one of the marginalized people trying to be published.
Right. And I think part of that is he is taking the opportunity to draw attention to himself and to continue to be relevant. I mean, he spits out 2 or 3 books a year. He's a machine, but if he can drive attention where that there's a space for it, why not? It's opportunistic.
Oh, you mean commercialize and get his books sold?
What?
Did we mention anything about commercialization this episode?
No. No.
No.
One of the other things that I think kind of underscores all this is
Mm.
um, this is all seen, I think, in my opinion, as a cultural war. It's
Mm.
a culture war on traditional norms within this country, which stems back to the creation of this country.
Correct.
So there's this culture war that has been percolating and probably coming to a precipice now that we have seen an explosion of expression, from
Mm.
people of color.
Very well said.
Whether it's
Mhm.
whether it's been through protests or artistry, creativity, or seeing people of color being elevated into leadership roles. You've
Mhm.
seen this explosion of putting people who are not white, who are not male,
Mhm.
on display.
Mhm.
And that has I have personally have seen that across, kind of television over the last like 5 to 8 years.
Mhm.
There's more representation, which means that there's less of one majority area that is not getting as much coverage as they
Mhm.
have normally gotten. And I
It
think
has
that's
challenged
it's
the
a cult
establishment.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a cultural war. And
Mm.
how do
Mhm.
you maintain control? Well, guess what? We live in a society that has already
Mhm.
been framed in these norms. So when you challenge these norms,
Mhm.
that brings about
A
scarcity.
backlash of, yeah,
Yeah,
or the
backlash.
backlash of hold on, we have to hold tighter, or we have to
Yeah,
change things. We have to recreate these
yeah,
boundaries to maintain control.
right.
Um, we're wrapping up here, and this is probably not fair for our listeners and viewers. I'm gonna drop a little bit of a bomb here, but it's not a bomb because if you were paying any attention over the last few days of June, there was a Supreme Court ruling that, and I want to speak accurately. The headlines will say it overturned Roe versus Wade. Okay, that's a headline. What it did was it constitutionally took away the protection for women's choice of abortion or not. That's what it did. Okay. So you talk about the establishment and, you know, what has been built on going backwards,
Yeah.
or the pushback and the fight back to maintain power, right? So, okay, for those of you, I will share the notes from an article from AP as well, about the decision from the Supreme Court. All right, I want to put it this way: this is why it's important to be engaged in your communities and engaged and informed about what happens in society and in your world, and why it's important to vote.
Hmm.
Why it's important, because now we had the highest court in the country reverse something that should be a choice, not a mandate from somebody who does not know. I say it that way because, there are people. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not telling you I'm pro life or pro choice, although you'll probably get because of what I'm saying. But there's arguments from many Christians who will use the Bible and religion as, well, who it's not your right to destroy a life. Okay? I just want to say that one of the fundamentals in Christianity is the power of choice. That's what, as a Christian man, that is a fundamental. I God has given me the power of choice,
Hmm.
and it's up to me as to what I do with that power of choice, whether it's aligned with what He has in store for me or not. And when my time comes for judgment day, that is when I am judged on that choice,
Right.
not by some law that said, oh, well, you don't get to choose that, but you get to choose this. That's not how it works. You
Right.
can't just pick and choose when religion works for you, but yet you have the freedom and
Hmm.
choice to have a semi-automatic weapon to defend yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a whole nother conversation. Whole nother
Oh no,
conversation.
and I know that's not fair. I dropped that at the end of this episode, but I want to share like the why I said that and why I moved to share that. I want to put this up here as because I don't want any listeners, I don't want any viewers to think I am picking on white people. Not picking on white folks. I am picking a fight against the system that is inequitable and
Hmm.
unfair.
Yeah.
And as you see here, Justice Thomas, we know as a conservative, he was part of this, but this is the part that's important, and I want everybody to get. He urged colleagues to overturn other high court rulings. So courts lower than the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
but where rulings have for same-sex marriage, gay sex, and the use
Hmm.
of contraceptives. So we, as a society, as the United
Yeah.
States, have opened the door for things like this. That's why it is important to pay attention to who is in these positions of decision making. That is why representation matters. That is why I we started this episode with talking about Juneteenth
Hmm.
and not commercializing it. Because if we forget what it is celebrating, then we come up with, oh, we're working our way back to that
Yeah. Yeah.
if we're not careful. So, any last thoughts that you would like to
Yeah.
leave since I dropped that?
Yeah. I mean, I think through all this, if there's one thing that I hope that the listeners and the viewers
Mhm,
get is that everything that we have highlighted has been about control of your body. If you can take away control or maintain control of someone else's body, you can control whatever you want.
mhm,
If you looked at, the lines that we just had up
mhm.
about
I can put them up again.
looking at
Mhm,
overturning, same-sex marriage, gay sex, and the use of contraception.
mhm,
Um, we just recently lost, just yesterday we lost the decision for Roe versus Wade. It's all about control of oneself and
mhm,
about personal autonomy. So when you layer these beliefs about whether it's looking at religion or other ideological values
mhm,
put upon an entire society, that is not that is not um, that is not productive. It is not how you continue to evolve society when you limit people's choice over what they can do, and over their body. So
mhm,
that's the key thing is
mhm,
throughout slavery, it was control over one's body.
mhm.
We didn't have, our ancestors did not have control over their bodies.
No, because they weren't considered bodies; they were considered
Right,
property.
right. You look at, civil rights. You look at all these different
Mhm,
monumental events that happened. It's about control over one's body. Integration was about where can I go? Where can I physically go in society where I would feel safe, where my body would feel safe?
mhm.
And we're still dealing with that. So it's about control over one's body, and the way that we've seen this iceberg start to rise up, and we're starting to see a lot more, or we're starting to dig in a lot more deeper, and we're seeing that there's a
Sure.
concerted effort. There's a concerted effort in this country, both at the federal level and at the state level, to limit control over yourself.
Or
And
yeah,
people need, yeah,
or to have more control
yeah,
over you. Yes.
right,
That
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So people need to pay attention. Pay
Hmm.
attention. It's really serious.
And we will
Um,
do our best
yeah,
here tip all the time to
yeah,
these things may be uncomfortable for you to hear. They may be uncomfortable for you to listen to, right? And or read. We're not judging you. We are trying to educate you
yeah,
to what is really going on. You know,
yeah.
in a way that doesn't that brings you in. We want to bring
Mhm.
you in so that you have the power of choice.
Right. You may not agree with us all the time. That's fine.
Absolutely.
Have your
Absolutely.
opinions, but come with a open mind. I think that's the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And have a conversation.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, my brother, it has been another episode of Move the Needle. We appreciate all of you for hanging with us with this episode. We appreciate you listening and watching. You can find us on YouTube, actually. This will be on YouTube. And we have some news coming up soon. So stay tuned. We got some news coming up soon. Can't spill the beans yet. Okay.
Hold tight. Hold tight.
But you can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, and some other platforms. So for this month of Move the Needle, this has been Lee and JR, and we are signing off.